Kira didn't know what was happening in her house after dark. When she rubbed her eyes every morning after waking up, she noticed something strange. When she opened her eyes, she was astonished by the sight before her. It was the first time her dog had ever done anything like that. He cowered in the corner, far from his dog bed. What was going on? A sinister feeling bubbled deep inside of her, but she didn't know what it was. Despite not knowing what was going on, she was determined to find out. She wanted to start by inspecting the dog bed. The truth, however, was something she did not want to discover. The bed wasn't the only thing hiding sinister secrets. In order to figure out what was going on, Kira was forced to set up a camera. Although she didn't like it, she had to do it. Her nursing shift was early in the morning, so Kira missed most of the mysterious events. He might have been too hot in the middle of the night and preferred to lie on the floor instead. But why was he terrified? It didn't make sense. The life Kira Fairfield led in Arizona was mostly ordinary. By 20, she had left her parents' house, and when she was 25, she married the man of her dreams. As a nurse, she often arrived home exhausted. She usually got home from work early in the morning. She would cook herself a small meal before going straight to bed. Richard, her husband, worked from home, and they usually spent time together when she got home after 6 in the evening. He spent every day at home alone, while she worked difficult shifts at the hospital. But one day, her life changed when she got home from work, and it was all because of her dog. The couple discovered Kira was pregnant shortly after her husband moved in. There was nothing that could dampen their happiness. In other words, they were willing to compromise anything for each other. She even allowed Richard to bring his family dog into the house when he needed to. However, she wasn't aware of his true colors. Jasper, Richard's beloved mixed breed, moved into their house. Kira wasn't bothered by it. When she was a child, her family had a dog that she loved dearly. In many ways, Jasper reminded her of her old dog. But when she was a child, she had a traumatic experience with a stray pit bull. But would she be okay being around Jasper? Now that she was an adult, she was ready to accept more love into her home. When Jasper moved in, they bought him a dog bed that they kept in the corner of their bedroom. However, things won't stay good forever. Kira was about to learn some startling things about her husband and Jasper. All animals have different personalities and temperaments, and they come in all shapes and sizes. It wasn't until Jasper moved into her house that she learned how he really was. Her nerves were a little frazzled. If Kira was cautious, it could lead to the end of her marriage. What was she supposed to do if she didn't like his dog? Regardless, she had to do the best she could to make things work. However, things were about to change drastically. When she saw how cute Jasper was, she quickly warmed up to him. The fact that he was a real mutt only added to his character in her eyes. As a child, she experienced trauma and still had scars to prove it. The moment she looked into his beautiful brown eyes, she was ready to move past it. She would end up loving him as much as her husband did. Over the next few months, Kira made sure that Jasper had settled in nicely to his new home. It was nice having what felt like another life to look after. The couple was less lonely with him in their lives, but there was definitely a catch that she hadn't noticed yet. It would show her what kind of person her husband really was. Jasper grew on Kira, and she no longer worried about him causing a rift in her marriage. But something was about to change. Her dog's behavior would suddenly drop to a shell of what it was. And when she asked her husband what was wrong, he didn't seem to care at all. This was a strange predicament. All of a sudden, Jasper stopped sleeping in his dog bed. At first, he'd be cowering in the corner of the room. When she got home at 4 a.m., she'd stroke the distraught pup, but things would change in a moment. Things escalated when she'd wake up in the early afternoon and felt fur next to her. She quickly realized what was hiding on her bed at night. Kira realized that Jasper wanted to sleep close to her on her bed. The pup didn't want to sleep in his bed anymore, but he had loved the bed for months. Why the change now? To make matters worse, there wasn't much space between her and her husband on the queen-size bed. She had to figure out what was going on behind this strange behavior. She looked down at her pup and stroked his soft coat. That's when she saw that the animal was scared half to death of something, but she had no idea what. Between long nursing shifts and making dinner when she got home, she didn't get a lot of time to spend with the dog. She wondered what scared him so much. The truth wouldn't give her any reassurance. The dog would fluctuate between being by her side on the bed and sitting in the corner, visibly shaking and scared. She felt awful for her animal and needed to make sure he was okay. She wasn't any closer to getting to the bottom of things, especially since her husband was completely disinterested in the pooch's behavior. But that's because she didn't know the truth. Kira decided that it was worth checking Jasper's bed. She knew how weird dogs could be, and maybe it was just a leaf or a torn stitch in the lining. She took out the cushion and examined it closely. At first, all she could see was hair. This was no surprise, and she decided the best thing to do was to wash the bed, having no idea what she had done. Something was clearly upsetting her dog, and she hated that her husband wasn't doing anything about it. She had to take things one step further, but there would be no going back. She decided that the only way to find out would be to set up cameras to figure out what he was doing, but she wouldn't know how harrowing the truth is. Kira went to the closest security store and bought cameras to see what her dog was doing. She would soon find out why her dog wasn't sleeping at night and what was terrifying him. That night, when Kira went to sleep, she knew she'd know exactly what was going on in the morning. Maybe he was too hot in the middle of the night and preferred lying on the floor instead. But then, why was he terrified? Kira slept that night with her husband in his bed with the cameras rolling. She slept well, knowing she'd soon find out what was going on with her Jasper. She was going to make sure he was okay. The next morning, she woke up early before having to start her work day and saw that Jasper was shaking in the corner again. She turned to the recording, but she couldn't believe what she saw. Kira looked at the footage and set it to 10 times the speed. She watched in terror as she saw something enter her bedroom. It was nerve-wracking watching things unfold. She heard Jasper whimper and move to the corner. For hours, he stood there shaking. It felt like something out of a horror movie. What was inside her bedroom? Kira couldn't understand what was going on. She couldn't make out what had entered her room and went out of frame. Something was clearly there, but she had no idea what it was. She decided that it was no use showing her husband. He didn't care anyway. But there was one person she could take it to who could help her. It would cost her, but it would be worth it. With the recording on her phone, Kira stopped by the vet on her way home from a long shift. She didn't bring Jasper. She was just concerned with what was on the recording. She found a 24-hour vet that was still open and walked through the front doors, having no idea what she would figure out. She just hoped that the vet would only stomp out her concerns. Kira had made an appointment during the day, which meant the veterinarian was waiting for her in his office. She walked in and sat down across from his comfy-looking chair. The vet walked in and greeted her before getting to work. He asked her a lot of questions, including ones about her husband. After seeing the recording, he had something concerning to say. After asking her questions for 10 minutes, he seemed concerned, but she still had no idea what was going on. She begged him for answers, to which he tried to answer. Clearly, this was above his head. "Have you ever considered divorcing your husband?" he asked. Kira went as pale as a sheet just hearing the words. Kira was disgusted by the cheeky remark and didn't want to do business with the vet anymore. It was clear he had been eyeing her the moment she walked in. She knew he couldn't help him and would find someone else. She tried booking another appointment at a different vet, but it was hard finding other 24-hour ones that were open when her shift ended. In the meantime, she'd have to do a bit of investigating herself. She was terrified of sleeping in the room, knowing that something was inside the room with her. That's when the doubts hit her. Was the veterinarian concerned about infidelity? Maybe. Perhaps he wasn't hitting on her. The confused mother-to-be didn't know what to think anymore. Kira hatched a plan to find out the whole truth. Why was her dog scared? Why was her husband not worried about it? And most importantly, who was in their house at night? She couldn't trust anyone, not even her husband. That's when she decided to leave work early one day. Kira started to think more rationally now. Monsters and ghosts weren't real. Whoever was in their house had let themselves in. There were no signs of burglary or forced entry in the morning. Was her dog trying to warn her about a dark secret that her husband was keeping from her? There was only one way to find out. Kira alternated night shifts at the local hospital. This meant that some nights she didn't come home to sleep at the conventional time. But after leaving work 4 hours early, she'd be home at midnight when her dog always got scared. She got home and quietly snuck into the house. She turned the doorknob to the bedroom and opened the door. Her dog was in the corner whimpering, but she couldn't believe what she saw on the dog bed.